So let's talk about your brain, my brain, our brains. What exactly is going on in there? I know we're just taking for granted that that's where all of the thinking happens, but there is actually a whole universe right there in our brain, and we need to pay attention to it. And March is not just Women History Month, it's also Brain Awareness Week. At least it contains Brain Awareness Week, which starts in a few days. And this morning, we want to pay attention to our brain. We're joined on the program by Dr. Paul Bolaji, who's a member of World Stroke Organization, also a member of the Africa Stroke Organization. Dr. Paul Bolaji is right here with us in our Lagos studio. His specialty is in neurology, healthcare leadership. Good morning. It's good to have you on the show.
Good morning, Mr. Okikolu. Also, thank you so much for...
Thank you for joining us. You know, we just had that conversation, and it's evident what is in our brains as Nigerians right now. Yeah. A lot. There's a lot of pressure, and I'm not talking globally. I'm talking as Nigerians. You have to battle a lot of things, think about stuff, analyze things, compartmentalize. I think the brain is one of the hardest workers in the body, if there's anything like that.
Yes, indeed.
It is, right?
I do agree.
So speak to us about why we need to be aware of our brain. We'll talk about stroke and all of that, but let's lay that foundation. Why is this important?
Yeah, I think the brain is a very key vital organ of the human body, you know, with billions, you know, of neurons. And it's that part of the body that helps us to understand the environment and function. You know, our speech center, our communication is from the brain. Even our movement, you know, is actually, is actually coordinated by the brain. Our vision is from the brain. So the brain is a key organ in the body, and it helps us for social interaction. So. And that is why it's very important also to actually, you know, look after our brain. And brain health is very important because there are a lot of things one also can do to prevent brain diseases, you know, like strokes, like also dementias. And I'm sure that's really what we are here for, to discuss more about that.
Definitely. So you can understand why this conversation is important. In terms of data, which is usually a challenge about, I know stroke will probably be top on that list of, you know, brain diseases. You talk about dementia and the rest. We had a conversation with a brilliant lady, Anna, about 2 weeks ago, who had a stroke at 23.
Yes.
I'm sure you probably caught that conversation. And, you know, it was just a wake-up call for everybody, even though hers was not as a result of, you know, blood pressure and all of that, but it just raised the awareness that, wait a minute, it can happen to anyone, yes, so you need to pay attention to it. But in terms of data, as much as we know that it's a big challenge, data is not really a big thing in Nigeria. I think the last survey we had was in 2005.
Yes, indeed.
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
So speak to us about how prevalent brain diseases are in Nigeria. Maybe draw inferences from other African countries as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. I think it's a very vital also question. You know, even though we have a clear positive data, there are some, you know, some also pockets of data from other African countries. And like you said, the last real study for stroke prevalence was like, in 2005. Also, that shows, an incidence of 26 out of 100,000. But we do know in other African countries, like now in Egypt now, 250 cases of strokes, you know, per 100,000, you know, and which is equivalent to around 300,000 strokes in a year for them. And even in South Africa today, they have close to 135,000 strokes in a year. And also there was an interesting recent study also published in Ghana, you know, but this was more for especially with risk factors for stroke. Also, they found out that like 1.14%, you know, of the patients they actually for several years had strokes. So stroke is a leading cause of, you know, of deaths in the world. Is the most also common cause of disability in the world and in Africa, and it's rising also because there's a whole lot of this lifestyle, you know, not, you know, junks and so on. A lot of people are hypertensive, are diabetic, and are not aware of it. So it is a ticking time bomb, and it's very important. We need to address it, you know, in Africa. And beyond stroke, also dementia is also something that is also quite prevalent, and, you know, and people don't know a lot about things. You know, we've known about also famous is the actors also that have dementias, you know. So those are key diseases that are very important, and we need to actually, we need to study
Right.
and actually get to prevent as soon as possible.
So there's a big gap in terms of data, studying and all of that. And that's why, I mean, you're working as well as other people in Nigeria to find a way to at least study this properly and be able to come up with the right interventions. But I want to speak to how to take care of our brains. So we talk about how to take care of our body, how to take care of your eyes, how to take care of... But because you can't see the brain, it's just right there in the skull. You're like, you'll be fine. I beg, just take care of yourself. So how do we take care of our brains? What should we avoid? What should we eat? This is us seeing the doctor, the neurologist now. So what should we avoid? What should we eat? And all of that.
Okay, thank you so much. You know, I don't have any magic, wand, that also covers everything. But I think the key thing is to understand that, the brain and the blood vessels and the heart interact very closely. And so if you take care of what we call the vascular risk factors, which are things also that predispose you to either heart attack, or heart failure or even strokes, if you take care of those things, that would actually prevent you from having those disease. An example is hypertension is one of the actually commonest cause of strokes in Africa. It was a very interesting study that people older than 25 years, there was a study that 50% of people actually have undiagnosed hypertension. So I think that's the key thing in Africa. So we need to check our blood pressure quite early than other population. When you're above also 30, you should be monitoring your blood pressure.
Pardon me to put in.
Yes.
What if checking your blood pressure is also another pressure itself? You know what I mean?
I understand.
So people get to the hospital and once
Yeah.
it's time to check the blood pressure, naturally it just spikes.
Yeah.
So that's also another challenge.
It is another challenge. And that's why I think making a diagnosis of hypertension is not just one-off. It's something we call ambulatory monitor, where they actually put a 24-hour blood pressure machine and they measure the average of your blood pressure. So we do know people have clearly what we call white coat hypertension. But I think it's very important because in the end, I think the benefits of knowing your blood pressure and tackling. I've seen people who were diagnosed at the age of 30 and they stuck to their blood pressure tablet and they lived up to 90 years. So the fact that you're aware of the blood pressure and you're using your medications very well, prevents you from having those complications of stroke. And apart from blood pressure, like I said, also diabetes, if you need to check your blood sugar, and also other things like the things we can modify. Smoking is a key risk factor, alcohol intake. And another thing is exercise. In this time where everybody is having, fancy cars and everything, nobody is, is doing exercise again. I think those are a very key thing. We do advise to have up to 30 minutes of what we call aerobic exercises. Yes, 3 times in a week at least. Those are very key things.
All right.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting conversation. Amidst all of these, politics, economy talk, we thought to just puncture it with this all-important talk around brain health, because it's the brain that does all of the heavy lifting. And we have to thank you so much. I know you came from the UK to have that meeting in Nigeria. So we wish you the very best.
You're welcome.
We wish you the best in terms of survey and all the interventions. Of course, we'll be here with all the support. We'll be speaking with Dr. Paul Bolaji, member World Stroke Organization, also member Africa Stroke Organization with specialty in neurology, healthcare leadership, as a consultant, stroke physician. Thank you for your time, Dr. Bolaji.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we turn our attention to, there's a reverse politics. We still have the arts bit coming up on the show. So, hey, stay with us.